Before we begin, a quick disclaimer. The information in this presentation is for educational and informational purposes only and is not intended as medical or psychological advice. This video is not a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you have seen or heard in this video. Your brain is under attack. Right now, every single day, from the moment you wake up to the moment you fall asleep, there is a war being waged for your most valuable resource, your attention. And you are losing. Think about it. When was the last time you sat down and did one single thing, just one, for an hour straight without a single interruption? Without your phone buzzing, without a notification popping up on your screen, without your own mind suddenly screaming at you to check your email, or scroll through social media, or wonder what's for dinner. If you're like most people, you can't remember. We live in a state of constant low-grade distraction. Our focus is fractured into a million tiny pieces. We call it multitasking, but what it really is task switching. And the science is terrifyingly clear on this. Every time you switch tasks, you incur something called a cognitive cost. It's a tiny tax on your mental energy. It doesn't feel like much in the moment, but over the course of a day, a week, a year, those tiny taxes add up. They leave you feeling drained, foggy, and perpetually behind, like you're running on a treadmill that's getting faster and faster, but you're not actually going anywhere. Researchers at the University of California, Irvine, found that the typical office worker gets interrupted or switches tasks, on average, every 3 minutes and 5 seconds. And once you're distracted, it can take over 23 minutes to get back to the same level of deep focus you had before. Do the math. We are living our lives in the shallow end of our cognitive potential. We have access to the most powerful tool in the known universe, the human brain. But we've allowed it to be hijacked by a non-stop fire hose of information and stimulation. So what's the solution? The world will sell you 1,000 different answers. Another productivity app. Another life hack. Another overpriced supplement promising laser focus. But what if the most powerful tool for reclaiming your mind, for rebuilding your ability to concentrate from the ground up, wasn't something you could buy or download? What if it was a technology that's been hiding in plain sight for over 5,000 years? What if the key to upgrading your brain for the 21st century was yoga? Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. Yoga? Isn't that just stretching for flexible people? Isn't that for calming down, not for sharpening your mind for high performance? And if you're thinking that, I am so glad you're here. Because over the course of this journey, we are going to completely dismantle that myth. We are going to peel back the layers of incense and yoga pants and reveal the powerful, evidence-based neuroscience at its core. This is not about spirituality. This is about biology. This is your masterclass in the science of how specific physical postures, controlled breathing techniques, and focused attention can literally change the structure and function of your brain. We are going to go deep. We're not just going to tell you that yoga improves focus. We're going to show you how. You will learn how holding a simple Warrior II pose for 30 seconds can start to quiet the part of your brain responsible for mind-wandering and anxiety, a network neuroscientists call the default mode network. Think of it as the chattering monkey in your skull. We're going to show you how to calm that monkey down. You will discover how a specific breathing technique, one you can do right at your desk in the middle of a chaotic workday, can directly stimulate your vagus nerve, the superhighway connecting your brain to your body, instantly shifting you out of a state of fight or flight stress and into a state of calm, collected focus. We're going to talk about brain chemistry. You'll learn how a consistent yoga practice can increase levels of GABA, or gamma-aminobutyric acid, in your brain. GABA is your brain's primary inhibitory neurotransmitter. It's like the brake pedal for your overactive, anxious thoughts. Low levels of GABA are linked to anxiety, restlessness, and an inability to focus. We're going to show you how to naturally and powerfully press that brake pedal. And we're going to explore one of the most exciting molecules in all of neuroscience, Brain-Derived Neurotrophic Factor, or BDNF. You can think of BDNF as Miracle-Grow for your brain cells. It helps your brain grow new neurons, strengthen existing ones, and protect them from stress. It is crucial for learning, memory, and higher-level thinking. And we now have compelling evidence showing that certain types of yoga can significantly boost its production. This is the incredible promise of what we're about to explore. We're not just talking about feeling a little more relaxed. We are talking about a fundamental upgrade to your cognitive operating system. Imagine being able to sit down to a difficult task and feel your mind lock in. the outside world fading away, time itself seeming to warp as you enter a state of deep, effortless flow. Imagine being in a stressful meeting or a difficult conversation, and instead of feeling reactive and scattered, you feel grounded, clear, and fully present. Imagine being able to turn your focus on and off like a switch, directing it with precision and power wherever you choose. This isn't a fantasy. This is what it feels like to have a well-regulated nervous system and a trained mind. And the tools to build that mind are accessible to every single one of us, regardless of your age, your fitness level, or whether you can even touch your toes. So, forget everything you thought you knew about yoga. We're not here to talk about achieving the perfect handstand. We are here on a scientific expedition. We're going to explore the intricate connections between your body, your breath, and your brain. We will be your guides, translating complex neuroscience into simple, actionable knowledge that you can use to reclaim your focus and unlock a level of mental clarity you may not have felt in years. The battle for your attention is real, but you are not defenseless. You have the power to train your brain, to make it more resilient, more powerful, and more focused. The training doesn't start in an app or with a pill. It starts right here on a simple mat with your own body and your own breath. So, what exactly happens on that mat? How can stretching and breathing practices that are thousands of years old possibly rewire the sophisticated, supercharged 21st century brain? It seems almost too simple to be true. But the secret isn't in the complexity of the movements. It's in the profound simplicity of what those movements force you to do, to listen. Not with your ears, but with your entire nervous system. You are training a sense you probably didn't even know you had. We're all familiar with the 5 basic senses: sight, sound, smell, taste, and touch. Science then gave us a 6th sense, proprioception, the sense of where your body is in space. It's how you can touch your nose with your eyes closed. But there's a 7th, and arguably the most important sense when it comes to focus: interoception. Interoception is the sense of the internal state of your body. It's the quiet, persistent whisper of your own biology. It's the feeling of your heart beating against your ribs, the subtle pang of hunger in your stomach, the tension building in your shoulders after a long day, the feeling of air filling your lungs. It is your brain's real-time, high-definition feed of everything happening inside you. Now, why does this internal sense matter so much for external focus? Because a huge portion of your mental distraction isn't actually coming from the outside world. It's not the email notification or the person talking in the next room. It's internal static. It's your brain picking up on faint, unprocessed signals from your body. A slight dip in blood sugar, a subtle increase in heart rate, shallow breathing you're not even aware of. Your body sends these signals to the brain as a low-level hum of unease. Your brain, unable to pinpoint the source, just labels it as anxiety, restlessness, or the inability to concentrate. You feel an urge to get up, to check your phone, to do anything other than the task at hand, because your brain is trying to escape this uncomfortable, unidentified internal noise. Your focus isn't breaking. It's being hijacked from the inside out. This is where the yoga mat becomes a laboratory. Let's break it down. Think about a seemingly basic pose like Warrior 2. You're standing with your feet wide, one knee bent, arms outstretched. What is actually happening here? Your instructor tells you to ground down through your feet to feel the floor. That's a direct command to your brain. Hey, pay attention to the soles of your feet. What do you feel? Then, you notice the muscles in your front thigh starting to burn. It's not just a sensation, it's a data point. Your brain is receiving a signal of muscular effort. You feel the stretch across your chest and shoulders. Another data point. You notice your breath becoming a little more strained. A crucial data point. In a normal day, you would ignore all of this. You'd shift your weight, drop your arms, and the signals would stop. But in yoga, you are asked to hold the pose. You are asked to stay with the discomfort, to observe it without immediately reacting. You are consciously directing your attention to the raw, physical sensations of the moment. You are forcing the chattering, future-obsessed part of your brain to shut up for a second and just listen to what the body is saying right now. This is not exercise. This is interoceptive training disguised as exercise. Every single pose is a different lesson in listening. A forward fold teaches you to feel the intricate pull along your hamstrings and spine. A balancing pose like tree pose forces you to tune into the micro adjustments in your ankle and foot to keep you from falling. You can't be thinking about your to-do list when your entire nervous system is screaming, "Pay attention or we're going down." Then we layer on the most powerful tool of all, the breath. Pranayama, or breath control. When you consciously slow down your breathing, you are doing something radical. You are taking direct, manual control of a system that normally runs on autopilot. You are focusing on the physical sensation of air, the coolness as it enters your nostrils, the expansion of your rib cage, the gentle deflation of your belly. This rhythmic, predictable sensation becomes an anchor. The storm of internal static and external distractions might be raging, but you have this anchor. The more you focus on it, the stronger the anchor holds, and the quieter the storm becomes. You are, breath by breath, pose by pose, strengthening the neural pathways between your body and your brain. You are improving the signal quality. You're turning up the volume on the important messages and filtering out the noise. And the part of your brain that's getting the biggest upgrade is a little region tucked away deep inside called the insular cortex, or simply the insula. The insula is the command center for interoception. It's the brain's main hub for processing all those internal signals: heart rate, respiration, temperature, pain, muscle tension, and integrating them into a cohesive feeling. It's what allows you to feel an emotion and connect it to a physical sensation. That gut feeling you have? That's your insula talking. That wave of anxiety that makes your heart race? That's your insula too. When your insula is poorly tuned, it misinterprets the signals. It might interpret a slight increase in heart rate from caffeine as a full-blown panic attack. It might mistake the body's normal state of rest for a sign of lethargy or depression. This misinterpretation creates a constant state of internal confusion and anxiety, making sustained focus impossible. It's like a CEO trying to run a company with faulty, inaccurate reports from every department. The result is chaos. Here's the incredible part. Neuroscientists using fMRI scans have discovered that people who practice yoga regularly have significant differences in their insular cortex. Studies have shown increased gray matter density, literally more brain cells and connections, in the insula of long-term practitioners. They've also shown that during meditation and yoga, the insula becomes more active, more robust. What this means is staggering. You are not just stretching your muscles on the mat, you are physically building a better brain. You are thickening the very part of your brain responsible for self-awareness and emotional regulation. You are upgrading your internal operating system. Imagine your mind is an old analog radio. For most of us, the dial is stuck somewhere between stations. We hear a little bit of the music, but it's mostly drowned out by static, by fuzzy noise, by fragments of other channels. That static is the unprocessed internal chatter. It's the anxiety, the restlessness, the distraction. Trying to focus is like trying to enjoy a symphony through that static. It's exhausting and ultimately futile. Each time you step on the mat and consciously focus on a sensation, your breath, a muscle, your balance, you are reaching out and giving that radio dial a tiny, precise turn. First, it doesn't seem to do much. The static is still there. But you keep doing it. A gentle turn with every breath. A tiny adjustment with every pose. Day after day, week after week. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, the static begins to fade. The signal becomes clearer. Eventually, you can tune directly into the right station. You can hear the music of your own body's signals with crystal clarity. And in that clarity, there is silence. There is peace. There is focus. You've rewired your brain to listen to your body. You've built a stronger, more efficient insula. You've learned to calm the internal static. But what happens when the real world, with its deadlines, its notifications, and its relentless demands, starts screaming for your attention again? How does this newfound internal quietness become a shield against the chaos outside? The answer lies in how this practice fundamentally changes your relationship with stress. And it starts with a tiny, almond-shaped structure deep inside your brain that governs every single fear and fight or flight response you've ever had. This structure is the amygdala. Think of it as your brain's ancient, hypervigilant security guard. Its one and only job is to scan for threats and, when it finds one, to sound the alarm. This isn't a polite, quiet alarm. It's a full-blown 5-alarm fire bell that floods your entire system with stress hormones like adrenaline and cortisol. Your heart pounds, your muscles tense, your breathing becomes shallow and rapid. Your brain diverts all energy away from non-essential systems like digestion, immune response, and most importantly for our topic, rational long-term thinking. Why would you need to ponder the meaning of life or plan your quarterly report when a saber-toothed tiger is about to pounce? In the evolutionary past, this system was a masterpiece. It saved our lives. The problem is, your amygdala hasn't gotten the memo that we're not living on the savannah anymore. It's still operating on Paleolithic software in a 21st century world. To your amygdala, there is no difference between a tiger and an angry email from your boss. There is no difference between a famine and a traffic jam making you late for a meeting. There is no difference between a rival tribe and a passive-aggressive comment on your social media post. Each of these modern threats triggers the exact same primal life-or-death response. The result? Most of us are living in a state of chronic low-grade amygdala activation. The alarm bell is constantly ringing, just quietly enough that we've learned to ignore its hum. But the physiological cost is immense. The constant drip of cortisol damages brain cells, particularly in the hippocampus, which is crucial for memory and learning. And it keeps the prefrontal cortex, the CEO of your brain, responsible for focus, decision-making, and emotional regulation, perpetually suppressed. You can't achieve deep focus when your internal security guard is constantly screaming that the building is on fire. You feel scattered, anxious, and reactive, not because you're weak or undisciplined, but because your brain is biologically hijacked. This is where yoga enters the picture, not as a simple exercise, but as a sophisticated neurological training program. It's a systematic process for recalibrating your brain's alarm system. Let's break down how it performs this neurological magic, starting with the physical postures or asana. When you hold a challenging pose like Warrior 2, your leg starts to shake, your muscles burn, your mind screams at you to give up. This is a form of physical stress. But here's the crucial difference. You are in a safe, controlled environment. You are consciously choosing to be there. As you hold the pose and focus on your breath, you are sending a powerful new signal to your amygdala. The message is, yes, the body is experiencing intense sensation. Yes, this is difficult. But we are not in danger. We are safe. We are in control. This practice is a form of stress inoculation. You are exposing your nervous system to a manageable dose of stress, and then guiding it back to a state of calm. With every yoga class, you are creating new neural pathways. You are teaching your amygdala to be less reactive. It learns to differentiate between a real threat, the proverbial tiger, and a challenging but non-lethal sensation, like a burning thigh muscle or a stressful work deadline. Neuroscientists have observed this in brain scans. Studies, including groundbreaking work led by researchers at Harvard and Massachusetts General Hospital, have shown that long-term yoga and meditation practitioners have a measurably smaller amygdala. Their brain's alarm center is literally less dense, less reactive. They haven't eliminated stress. They've just upgraded their brain's ability to process it without freaking out. But the physical postures are only one part of the equation. The second, and perhaps most direct, tool yoga uses to communicate with the brain is the breath, or pranayama. Your breath is the remote control for your nervous system. Most of the time when you're stressed, you breathe shallowly into your chest. This is called thoracic breathing, and it's a signal to your body that you're in fight or flight mode. It keeps the sympathetic nervous system, the body's gas pedal, floored. Yoga teaches you to breathe deeply into your belly. This diaphragmatic breathing does something remarkable. It stimulates a massive nerve called the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is the main superhighway of your parasympathetic nervous system, the body's braking system. It runs from the base of your brain down through your neck, chest, and abdomen, connecting to your heart, lungs, and digestive tract. When you take a long, slow, deep breath, you are manually toning your vagus nerve. This sends a powerful signal straight to your brainstem and up to your amygdala that says, all is well. You can stand down. The threat has passed. Activating this rest and digest system immediately lowers your heart rate, reduces your blood pressure, and halts the production of cortisol. It's a biological override switch for anxiety. You are using the physical body to change the mind. You're not just thinking, I should calm down. You are triggering the precise physiological cascade that creates a state of calm. This is why, after just a few deep breaths in a yoga class, the world can feel like it's slowed down. It has. You've just manually shifted your entire nervous system from a state of high alert to a state of peace and recovery. Finally, we have the element of mindfulness, or dhyana, that is woven through the entire practice. As you hold a pose or focus on your breath, your mind will inevitably wander. A thought about an unpaid bill will pop up. A worry about a future event will surface. An old resentment will play out. This is the amygdala and its associated networks trying to pull you back into familiar cycles of stress and rumination. The practice of yoga is not to stop these thoughts, which is impossible, but to change your relationship to them. You are trained to notice the thought, to acknowledge it without judgment. Ah, there's that worry again. And then gently guide your attention back to the physical sensation of your breath or your body. This act is monumental. You are creating a space between the trigger, the stressful thought, and your reaction. You are stepping out of the role of being the thought and into the role of being the observer of the thought. Each time you do this, you are weakening the old reactive neural pathways and strengthening new ones centered in the prefrontal cortex. You are training your brain CEO to stay in charge, even when the security guard is trying to cause a panic. This is the very essence of mental focus. It's not about having an empty mind. It's about being able to choose where you place your attention, regardless of the internal or external noise. So, when we put it all together, yoga is a trifecta of neurological reprogramming. The asana teaches the amygdala resilience in the face of physical stress. The pranayama gives you a direct, physiological lever to pull your nervous system out of fight or flight and into rest and digest. And the mindfulness component retrains your attention, allowing your prefrontal cortex to wrest control back from the reactive, emotional parts of your brain. It's a holistic system for downgrading your brain's threat detection software. By calming the chronic, low-grade alarm that sabotages our cognitive abilities, yoga doesn't just make you feel better. It fundamentally frees up the vast mental resources that were being wasted on managing phantom tigers. It clears the deck, allowing the most evolved part of your brain to finally step into the spotlight and do what it does best: think, create, and focus with profound clarity. But taming the amygdala is only half the battle. To truly understand how focus is forged, we need to look at what happens in that newly empowered part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex, and how yoga doesn't just quiet the noise, but actually helps build a stronger, faster, and more efficient command center. Imagine your prefrontal cortex is the CEO of a massive corporation called You, Incorporated. This small patch of brain real estate right behind your forehead is the corner office. It's where the big decisions are made. It's responsible for long-term planning, impulse control, understanding complex social cues, and most critically for our conversation, directing your attention. It's the part of you that decides to work on that important project instead of watching cat videos. It's the part that bites its tongue in a heated argument. It's the conductor of your mental orchestra, telling the violins of emotion to quiet down so the horns of logic can be heard. In our modern world, this CEO is under relentless siege. It's not just getting a few emails. It's being firehosed with a million notifications, alerts, and pings every single second. The door to the corner office is gone. Anyone and anything can burst in at any moment. Your inner critic is screaming about a mistake you made yesterday. Your anxiety is projecting disaster scenarios for tomorrow. A pop-up ad for shoes you looked at once is flashing in the periphery. Your phone buzzes with a news alert about a crisis halfway around the world. The result is a state of perpetual cognitive overload. Our CEO is frazzled, exhausted, and completely overwhelmed. Starts making bad decisions. It procrastinates on the important stuff because it's easier to deal with the trivial, urgent-seeming tasks. It loses the ability to think deeply, to plan, to focus. This isn't a personal failing. It's a systemic breakdown in the executive suite. Your command center is in chaos. This is where yoga enters, not as a gentle stretching class, but as an elite executive training program. It's a multi-pronged strategy designed to rescue, retrain, and ultimately rebuild your brain's CEO. The first part of this training program is deceptively simple. It forces you into radical single-tasking. In yoga, this is called dharana, the practice of concentration. Think about holding a difficult balancing pose like tree pose or warrior 3. Your entire being has to conspire to make it happen. You can't be mentally drafting an email or planning your dinner. The moment your mind wanders, your body wobbles. The moment you start worrying about what other people in the class are thinking, you fall. The pose itself becomes an unwavering anchor for your attention. You have to focus on the subtle shifts in your weight, the engagement of your core, the steady rhythm of your breath, the fixed point on the wall in front of you. Every time your mind inevitably drifts, and it will, the physical feedback of instability gently but firmly calls it back. This is a workout. Each time you notice your mind has wandered and you deliberately bring it back to the sensation of the pose, you are performing a single crucial repetition. You are strengthening the neural circuits of attention. You are training your prefrontal cortex to do its most important job, to inhibit distractions and sustain focus. It's like taking your brain to the gym. You wouldn't expect to lift a heavy weight on your first try, you build up to it. Similarly, holding your focus for 5 full breaths in a challenging pose might feel impossible at first. But with practice, the muscle of attention gets stronger. Your CEO learns to close the office door, to put the phone on silent, and to concentrate on the one thing that matters in that moment. But yoga goes a step further. It's not just training the existing CEO. It's actually renovating and upgrading the entire corner office. This is where the concept of neuroplasticity becomes so incredibly powerful. Neuroplasticity is the brain's ability to reorganize itself, to form new neural connections, to literally change its own structure in response to experience. And the experience of a consistent yoga practice leads to some truly astonishing structural changes. Groundbreaking research, much of it pioneered by neuroscientist Sarah Lazar at Harvard, has used MRI scans to look inside the brains of long-term yoga and meditation practitioners. What they found is stunning. These individuals consistently show increased gray matter density in specific areas of the brain, most notably the prefrontal cortex. Let's be clear about what that means. Gray matter is the stuff of thought. It's the brain's hardware, the processors, the RAM, the intricate network of neurons and synapses that handle information processing, memory, and decision-making. More gray matter in your prefrontal cortex is the neurological equivalent of upgrading your computer from a clunky 10-year-old laptop to a state-of-the-art supercomputer. It means your CEO has more resources, more processing power, and a greater capacity to handle complex information without crashing. It can manage stress more effectively, make better decisions under pressure, and of course maintain a state of clear, unwavering focus for longer periods. Yoga isn't just a software update that teaches you new mental tricks. It's a fundamental hardware upgrade for your brain's command center. So we've trained our CEO with single tasking, and we've upgraded its office with more gray matter. But there's a third, equally profound mechanism at play. Yoga profoundly enhances the quality of information that the CEO receives. It does this by building what we could call an interoception superhighway. Interoception is your eighth sense. It's the sense of the internal condition of your body. It's how you know you're hungry, thirsty, tired, or have a full bladder. It's the feeling of your heart beating in your chest, the sensation of air filling your lungs. For many of us, living lives disconnected from our bodies, this sense is dull and muted. We only notice our body when it's screaming at us in the form of pain, illness, or extreme anxiety. We get vague, confusing signals, a general feeling of unease, a knot in the stomach, and our prefrontal cortex has to waste a ton of energy trying to figure out what's wrong. Yoga is a masterclass in developing high-definition interoception. From the very first moment you step on the mat, you are guided to turn your attention inward. Feel the ground beneath your feet. Notice the alignment of your spine. Sense the stretch in your hamstrings. Observe the rise and fall of your belly with each breath. This is not just navel-gazing. It is a sophisticated neurological process. You are activating and strengthening the neural pathways that run from the sensory receptors all over your body to a part of the brain called the insular cortex, which acts as a kind of internal data processing hub. The insula then communicates this rich, detailed information directly to the prefrontal cortex. With a well-developed interoceptive sense, your CEO is no longer getting vague, panicked memos from the body. It's getting clear, real-time, high-fidelity data. Instead of a nebulous cloud of anxiety, it gets a specific report. Heart rate is slightly elevated, breathing is shallow in the upper chest, and there is tension in the shoulders. Armed with this precise information, the PFC can take precise action. It can consciously deepen the breath, which activates the parasympathetic nervous system. It can intentionally relax the shoulders. It can recognize the physical pattern of stress and choose a different response instead of being hijacked by it. This creates a state of profound embodiment. Your mind and body are no longer two separate entities, with the mind trying to guess what the body needs. They are a unified, seamlessly integrated system. This grounding in the physical reality of the present moment is the ultimate antidote to the scattered, distracted state of modern life. A focused mind is an embodied mind. So let's put it all together. The physical discipline of the poses trains your prefrontal cortex in the art of single tasking, strengthening its ability to command attention. This consistent training stimulates neuroplasticity, literally building a bigger, better, more powerful prefrontal cortex with more gray matter. And the constant internal focus fine-tunes your interoceptive sense, creating a high-speed, high-quality data link between your body and your brain. The result is a command center that has been transformed. It's no longer an overwhelmed, burnt-out executive. It's a calm, powerful, and incredibly efficient leader, capable of navigating complexity with grace and directing its most precious resource, your attention, with surgical precision. But building a stronger brain structure and better communication pathways is only half the story. The other half is about the energy that runs through that system. It's about the very rhythm of the brain itself. We've upgraded the hardware, but now we need to look at the electricity, the brainwaves that pulse through these new circuits. Because yoga doesn't just change how your brain is built. It fundamentally changes how it fires, shifting it from a state of chaotic, high-frequency static to a coherent rhythm of calm, creative, and focused power. And this shift from static to rhythm is where things get really interesting. It's not just a poetic metaphor. It's a literal, measurable change in the electrical symphony of your brain. Think of your mind as a massive, world-class orchestra. You have the string section, your thoughts; the brass section, your emotions; the percussion, your bodily sensations; and the woodwinds, your memories. Now, in the typical modern, overstimulated brain, this orchestra is playing without a conductor. The strings are screeching out a frantic, anxious tune. The brass section is blaring with frustration or excitement. The percussion is pounding with the relentless beat of stress. It's a cacophony. It's noise. Scientifically, we call this noise a state of high beta brainwave dominance. Beta waves are fast. They're essential for when you need to be sharp, focused, and actively problem-solving. But when they're constantly in overdrive, it's the signature of a mind that's scattered, anxious, and perpetually distracted. It's the brain state of having 20 browser tabs open, not just on your computer, but in your head. You're trying to write an email, but you're also thinking about your grocery list, replaying a conversation from yesterday, and worrying about a meeting tomorrow. That's high beta chaos. Now imagine a conductor walking onto the stage. With a simple, steady motion, the conductor raises a baton. That conductor is your breath. That conductor is your focused attention. That conductor is the practice of yoga. As you begin to breathe slowly and deliberately, as you move your body with mindful intention, the conductor brings order to the orchestra. The frantic screeching of the strings softens into a calm, harmonious melody. The blaring brass section quiets to a warm, supportive hum. The chaotic percussion finds a steady, grounding rhythm. The orchestra is no longer a source of noise. It's a source of beautiful, coherent music. This harmonious state is dominated by what scientists call alpha waves. Alpha waves are slower than beta waves. They are the hallmark of a mind that is awake, yet deeply relaxed. It's the state of wakeful rest. It's that feeling you get when you're walking in nature, or when you're so absorbed in a creative task that the world just melts away. It's not a state of being zoned out, it's a state of being zoned in. It is the brain's optimal frequency for learning, for creativity, and for absorbing new information without the friction of stress. Yoga is, in essence, a masterclass in teaching yourself how to consciously shift your own brainwaves from the chaotic static of beta to the calm clarity of alpha. But how? How can a series of physical postures and breathing exercises possibly have this profound an effect on the electrical firing of our neurons? Let's start with the most powerful tool you have, your breath. In yogic philosophy, this is called pranayama, the regulation of life force. In neuroscience, it's called activating the parasympathetic nervous system. When you engage in slow, deep diaphragmatic breathing, the kind of breathing you practice in yoga, you are sending a direct, powerful signal up the vagus nerve to your brainstem. The vagus nerve is the superhighway of your body's relaxation response. This signal essentially tells your brain's command center, all is well. You can stand down from high alert. You are safe. In response, the brain begins to throttle back its production of stress hormones, and almost instantly, the electrical pattern begins to shift. The fast, jagged beta waves begin to smooth out and slow down, transforming into the smooth, rolling waves of the alpha state. Every conscious, slow breath you take on the yoga mat is like turning down the dial on mental static, allowing the clear signal of focus to emerge. Then there are the physical postures, the asanas. Holding a challenging pose like Warrior 2 isn't just a workout for your legs and core. It's a workout for your prefrontal cortex. To maintain balance, to align your body, to breathe steadily through the discomfort, your brain cannot afford to be scattered. It can't be thinking about your to-do list. It has to recruit vast neural resources from all over the brain, the motor cortex to control the muscles, the cerebellum for balance, the somatosensory cortex to feel your body in space, and the prefrontal cortex to maintain focus and willpower. This act of whole brain engagement creates what neuroscientists call neural synchrony. Different parts of the brain that were firing out of sync, creating that orchestral chaos, are now forced to fire together in a coherent rhythmic pattern. This synchronized firing is a powerful generator of alpha and, in moments of peak focus, even gamma waves. Gamma waves are the fastest brain waves, associated with high-level information processing and moments of profound insight, the aha moments. So when you're holding that pose, trembling but focused, you are literally training your brain to unify its power, to transform a scattered mob of neurons into a highly disciplined, focused team. And finally, there's the element of drishti, the focused gaze. In almost every yoga pose, you're instructed to rest your gaze on a single unmoving point. This might seem like a minor detail, but it's a neurological masterstroke. Your visual system takes up a massive amount of your brain's processing power. When your eyes are darting around a room, you are constantly feeding your brain new information to process, analyze, and react to. This keeps the brain in a state of mild, continuous alert, a beta state. By fixing your gaze on one spot, you are intentionally cutting off this fire hose of new sensory data. You are telling your brain, there is nothing new to see here, nothing to analyze. You can relax. This simple act stabilizes your entire sensory system, which in turn helps to stabilize your brainwave activity. It's like putting blinders on a racehorse, allowing it to focus only on the track ahead. The drishti acts as an anchor for your attention, preventing your mind from being pulled away by the currents of distraction and locking it into that calm, alpha-dominant state of one-pointed awareness. Think of it this way: your brain is like a highly sophisticated radio receiver, capable of tuning into many different frequencies. The high beta frequency is a noisy, chaotic talk radio station, with multiple hosts shouting over each other. It's full of alarmist news, endless commercials, and stressful call-ins. For many of us, our radio is permanently stuck on this station. We've forgotten that we can even change the channel. The practice of yoga is the act of reaching out and slowly, deliberately turning the tuning knob. The slow breathing begins to move the dial away from the static. Holding a challenging pose helps you lock onto a much clearer frequency. The focused gaze fine-tunes the signal, eliminating any remaining interference. Suddenly, you're no longer listening to the chaotic talk radio station. You've tuned into the alpha frequency, a channel playing beautiful, complex, classical music. It's calming, but it's also engaging. You can appreciate its nuances, follow its melodies, and get lost in its beauty. This is the state of flow, of deep focus, of effortless concentration. And the most incredible part is that this isn't just a temporary state that you experience on the mat. By consistently practicing this brainwave tuning, you are creating and strengthening the neural pathways that allow you to access this state on command. You become a master of your own internal radio. When you need to do deep focus work, you know how to tune into the alpha channel. When you need to solve a complex problem, you can dial up the gamma channel for a flash of insight. You don't have to be a slave to the default static of the high beta mind. This is the true power behind yoga's effect on focus. It gives you the manual, the operating instructions for your own brain, teaching you how to shift its fundamental electrical state from one of chaotic reactivity to one of calm, coherent, and intentional power. We've rewired the brain's physical structure, and now we've retuned its electrical rhythm. But there's a third crucial piece to this puzzle. What about the chemistry? What about the actual molecules, the neurotransmitters that govern our mood, our motivation, and our ability to feel calm and centered? Because it turns out, yoga is also one of the most powerful neurochemical cocktails you can legally and naturally create for yourself, flooding your brain with the very substances it needs to thrive. Let's start with the brain's master calming agent, GABA. That's GABA, or gamma-aminobutyric acid. Think of GABA as your brain's natural brake pedal. When your mind is racing, filled with anxious thoughts, deadlines, and 1,000 tiny worries, it's because your excitatory neurotransmitters, the brain's gas pedal, are floored. GABA is the chemical that steps on the brakes. It's an inhibitory neurotransmitter, meaning its job is to tap down on nerve activity, reduce mental static, and bring a sense of calm and quiet to your inner world. It's the difference between a room with 100 TVs blaring at once and a quiet library where you can actually hear yourself think. So, where does yoga come in? Well, scientists were curious about this too. Researchers at Boston University School of Medicine conducted a groundbreaking study. They took two groups of people. One group practiced yoga for an hour, and the other group simply read a book for an hour. Before and after, they used advanced brain imaging to measure the levels of GABA in their subjects' brains. The results were staggering. The reading group showed no significant change. But the yoga group? They showed a massive 27% increase in GABA levels. A single 1-hour session of yoga boosted their brain's primary calming chemical by over a quarter. This isn't just a feeling. It's measurable neurochemistry. Every time you hold a pose and focus on your breath, you are actively instructing your brain to produce more of its own anti-anxiety medication. This GABA surge is why, after a yoga class, the world seems to move a little slower. The noise that was deafening before is now just a background hum. This isn't just relaxation. It's the essential prerequisite for focus. You cannot concentrate on one thing when your brain is screaming about 100 other things. By increasing GABA, yoga systematically silences the noise, clearing the mental deck so that your attention has a clean, quiet space to land. But the brain's cocktail bar doesn't stop there. While GABA is hitting the brakes on anxiety, yoga is also stimulating the production of serotonin. If GABA is the quiet, serotonin is the contentment. It's often called the feel-good chemical, but it's more accurate to call it the everything is okay chemical. Serotonin regulates mood, sleep, and appetite. It provides a stable emotional foundation, a sense of well-being that allows you to navigate life's challenges without getting completely derailed. Low levels are famously linked to depression and anxiety. So how does a warrior pose or a sun salutation get you more of it? The magic lies in the combination of rhythmic movement and mindful breathing. Repetitive, flowing motions like moving from plank to chaturanga to upward-facing dog have been shown to significantly increase serotonin production. It's a form of moving meditation. You're not just stretching your muscles. You're engaging your brain in a steady, predictable rhythm that it finds deeply soothing. This process helps pull you out of the chaotic, reactive state of the amygdala, the brain's fear center, and into the more regulated, stable state of the prefrontal cortex. A stable mood isn't a luxury when it comes to focus. It's a necessity. A brain stabilized by healthy serotonin levels is a brain that isn't constantly hijacked by emotional volatility. It can stay on task because it feels fundamentally safe and secure. Now let's talk about the rock star of neurochemicals, dopamine. Dopamine is the molecule of motivation. It's the chemical of reward, of drive, of craving. It's the reason you feel a rush when you check something off your to-do list, win a game, or get a notification on your phone. It's what pushes you to seek rewards and repeat behaviors that lead to them. But here's the problem with modern life. We are drowning in cheap dopamine. Social media, junk food, endless entertainment, they all provide a quick, easy hit, which trains our brains to crave instant gratification. This absolutely destroys our ability to pursue long-term goals that require sustained focus. Why work hard on a difficult project for a delayed reward when you can get a dopamine hit right now by scrolling through TikTok? Yoga masterfully hijacks this system for your own benefit. Think about your experience on the mat. You try a difficult balancing pose like tree pose. First, you're wobbly. You fall out of it. But you listen to the instructor, you engage your core, you fix your gaze on a single point. You try again. And this time you hold it. For 3 seconds. Then 5. Then a full minute. That feeling of success? That little jolt of, I did it? That's a pure earned hit of dopamine. Unlike the cheap dopamine of distraction, this is high-quality intrinsic dopamine. You didn't consume anything. You created it yourself through effort and focus. The yoga mat becomes a training ground for your dopamine system. It reteaches your brain to associate reward not with passive consumption, but with active engagement and incremental progress. Holding a pose for one extra breath, sinking a little deeper into a stretch, finally nailing that transition you've been working on for weeks. Each one is a microdose of motivation. This process builds a powerful positive feedback loop. Your brain starts to understand, hey, this feeling of focused effort, it actually feels good. I want more of this. Over time, you're not just building physical strength, you're rewiring your brain's entire reward circuitry to value and seek out the very state of deep focus. And we can't forget the endorphins. These are your body's natural opioids, its own private pain relief system. Released during strenuous physical activity, they create that feeling often called a runner's high. In a dynamic yoga practice, as you push your physical limits, your brain releases endorphins to manage the discomfort. This not only masks physical strain but also induces a state of mild euphoria and profound well-being. It's that blissful floaty feeling you get during savasana, the final resting pose, where the world just melts away. This endorphin wash helps to dissolve residual stress and tension, leaving you in a state of relaxed alertness that is perfect for clear thinking. So you have GABA turning down the anxiety, serotonin stabilizing your mood, dopamine rewarding your effort, and endorphins washing you in a wave of well-being. It's an incredibly potent combination, but there's one more substance we need to talk about, and it might be the most important one of all for long-term brain health and focus. It's a protein called Brain-Derived Neurotrophic Factor, or BDNF. If the other chemicals are like a tune-up for your brain's engine, BDNF is like pouring Miracle-Gro directly onto your neurons. It is a powerful protein that is fundamental to neuroplasticity, your brain's ability to reorganize itself by forming new neural connections. BDNF helps keep your existing brain cells healthy, it encourages the growth of new ones, and it's absolutely critical for learning, memory, and higher-level thinking. High levels of BDNF are associated with a sharp, fast, and resilient brain. Low levels are linked to depression, Alzheimer's, and cognitive decline. And one of the most reliable ways to boost your brain's production of BDNF is through exercise. Yoga, with its unique combination of physical exertion, focused breathing, and meditation, has been shown in studies to be a particularly effective BDNF booster. Every time you practice, you are literally creating the biological building blocks for a better brain. You're not just getting a temporary chemical buzz. You are triggering a cascade of growth factors that are physically strengthening the neural circuits responsible for attention and focus. You're fertilizing the very soil from which concentration grows, ensuring that the benefits of your practice aren't just felt for an hour after class, but become embedded in the very structure of your mind. This is how yoga moves from being a simple practice to a profound act of neurological architecture. And if the prefrontal cortex is the architect and neuroplasticity is the construction crew, then there's a master communication line running through your entire body that yoga learns to control. Think of it as the secret superhighway connecting your brain to your gut, your heart, and your emotional state. This isn't some abstract spiritual concept. It's a physical nerve, the longest and most complex of the cranial nerves. It's called the vagus nerve, and understanding it is the key to unlocking a level of calm, focus, and mental resilience you may not have thought possible. The vagus nerve is the main component of your parasympathetic nervous system, which is a fancy way of saying it's the body's primary rest and digest system. It's the biological counterbalance to your fight or flight response. Imagine your nervous system as having two modes. The fight or flight mode, the sympathetic nervous system, is your internal alarm. It's what floods your body with cortisol and adrenaline when you see a snake, or more likely, when you get an urgent email from your boss at 9 p.m. It's designed for short, intense bursts of survival. Its job is to narrow your focus to the immediate threat, ramp up your heart rate, and prepare your muscles for action. It's incredibly useful, but it's a terrible state to live in. Unfortunately, modern life has hijacked this system. The constant dings from our phones, the 24-hour news cycle, the pressure to always be productive. It's like we're seeing a dozen tiny snakes every single hour. Our fight or flight system is chronically activated. And when that system is in charge, higher-level thinking, creative problem-solving, and deep, sustained focus go right out the window. Your brain literally cannot access those resources because it believes it's in survival mode. It's trying to save you from a tiger, not help you write a detailed report. This is the biological root of that feeling of being constantly overwhelmed, scattered, and mentally exhausted. Now enter the vagus nerve. This is the captain of the rest and digest team. When the vagus nerve is stimulated, it sends a powerful message to your entire body. The threat is gone. You are safe. Stand down. It slows your heart rate, deepens your breathing, aids digestion, and reduces inflammation. Crucially, it tells the amygdala, the brain's fear center, to quiet down. And when the amygdala isn't screaming about a perceived emergency, the prefrontal cortex can finally come back online. The architect can get back to work. This is why you can't just will yourself to focus when you're stressed. You have to change your physiological state first. You have to activate the vagus nerve. And this is where yoga transforms from a physical exercise into a masterclass in nervous system regulation. Nearly every core component of yoga is, either by design or by beautiful accident, a powerful tool for vagal nerve stimulation. Let's start with the most direct and potent tool, your breath. Pranayama, or yogic breathing, is not just about getting oxygen. It's about consciously controlling the rhythm and depth of your breath to directly influence your neurological state. When you take a long, slow, deep breath, especially one where the exhale is longer than the inhale, you are performing a direct biological hack. Your diaphragm, the large muscle at the base of your lungs, lowers. As it does, it gently massages the organs below it, and most importantly, it stimulates the vagal nerve endings that are interwoven throughout your torso. This stimulation sends that all-clear signal straight to your brain. Each slow exhale is like pushing a button that tells your nervous system to switch from fight or flight to rest and digest. Think about it. What's the first thing someone tells you to do when you're panicking? Take a deep breath. It's folk wisdom that is now unequivocally backed by neuroscience. A 2018 study published in the journal Frontiers in Human Neuroscience found that slow, controlled breathing techniques demonstrably increase what's known as vagal tone. Vagal tone is essentially a measure of how well your vagus nerve is functioning. It's measured by tracking your heart rate variability, or HRV. High HRV means your heart rate is highly adaptable, able to speed up and slow down easily in response to your breath. This is a sign of a healthy, resilient nervous system. It means you can quickly recover from stress. Low HRV, on the other hand, is associated with chronic stress, inflammation, anxiety, and poor emotional regulation. The study found that yogic breathing practices significantly improved HRV, providing a quantifiable, biological marker that yoga is actively strengthening the part of your nervous system responsible for calm and focus. But it's not just the breathing. Consider the practice of chanting Om. It might seem mystical, but from a neurological perspective, it's genius. The vibrations created in your larynx and chest cavity when you chant or hum directly stimulate the vagus nerve, as it passes right through that area. It's another form of direct, physical activation. This is why a deep, resonant chant can feel so profoundly calming and centering. It's literally vibrating the nerve that tells your brain to relax. Even the physical postures, the asanas, play a role. Gentle twist, compress, and then release the internal organs, which can stimulate the vagus nerve. Inversions, like a simple downward-facing dog or a more advanced headstand, alter the blood pressure in the neck and upper chest, which activates the baroreceptors, sensors that report on blood pressure to the brain via the vagus nerve. This activation is another signal that triggers a relaxation response. Let's put this into a real-world context. Imagine a brilliant software engineer named Maya. She's a classic high achiever, fueled by coffee and pressure. Her focus is her superpower, but lately it's been failing her. She sits down to code and her mind jumps from the project at hand, to an email she forgot to send, to what she should make for dinner, to a looming deadline. Her heart is always racing a little too fast. She feels a constant, low-grade hum of anxiety. Her fight-or-flight system is running the show 24/7. She decides to try yoga, initially just to stretch her back from sitting all day. In her first class, the instructor guides them through a simple breathing exercise. Inhale for a count of 4, exhale for a count of 6. At first, Maya's mind rebels. It feels slow, unproductive, but she sticks with it. After 5 minutes, something shifts. The frantic inner monologue softens. The tightness in her chest eases. The world seems to come into focus in a way it hasn't all week. Maya isn't just relaxing. She is performing a targeted neurological intervention. With each extended exhale, she's stimulating her vagus nerve. She's telling her amygdala to stand down. She's manually shifting her body out of its chronic stress response. This allows the blood flow and energy resources in her brain to be rerouted away from the primitive survival centers and back to her prefrontal cortex. The result is that when she returns to her desk, the code isn't just lines on a screen anymore. She can see the architecture, hold complex problems in her mind, and enter a state of deep, productive flow. She hasn't just stretched her muscles. She has fundamentally changed her brain chemistry for the better. This isn't a one-time fix. Just like lifting weights, the more you practice these techniques, the stronger your vagal tone becomes. You're not just calming yourself down in the moment. You are training your nervous system to be more resilient to stress in the long run. You are building a baseline of calm. Your default state begins to shift. The fight or flight alarm becomes less sensitive, and the rest and digest system becomes more robust and easier to access. This means that when a stressful event does happen, a true emergency or just a difficult meeting, you don't get hijacked by it. You can acknowledge the stress, but your well-trained vagus nerve helps you return to a state of calm equilibrium much faster. Your focus becomes less fragile, less susceptible to being shattered by the inevitable interruptions of life. You're building a neurological foundation for unwavering mental clarity. But what does that foundation actually look like? If we could shrink down and take a tour of the brain of someone who practices yoga regularly, what would we see that's different? The answer lies in one of the most fascinating discoveries in modern neuroscience, a network in our brain that acts as our internal autopilot. It's called the default mode network, or DMN. Think about what your mind does when you're not actively focused on something. When you're driving a familiar route, washing dishes, or just sitting and waiting. Where does it go? It wanders. It replays conversations from yesterday. It worries about a deadline next week. It plans dinner. It daydreams. This internal chatter, this constant stream of self-referential thought, is the default mode network in action. It's the brain's baseline, its screensaver mode. And for most of us, that screensaver is incredibly busy, noisy, and distracting. An overactive default mode network is the very engine of a scattered mind. It's the neurological basis for that feeling of being lost in thought, unable to stay present with the task at hand. It constantly pulls your attention away from the now and into the past or the future. So, what does this have to do with a downward-facing dog? Everything. Researchers at institutions like Harvard and Yale have used fMRI scanners to literally watch what happens inside the brain during and after yoga and meditation. And they found something remarkable. Consistent practice does something profound to the default mode network. It quiets it down. The practice of yoga is, in essence, a training session for your attention. Every single time your mind wanders in the middle of a pose, and you gently guide it back to the sensation of your breath or the feeling in your muscles, you are performing a crucial mental rep. You are actively disengaging the DMN and strengthening a different network, the one responsible for focused executive control, the task-positive network. Imagine the default mode network is a loud, chatty roommate living in your head. This roommate means well, but they never stop talking, offering commentary on everything, reminding you of embarrassing moments, and speculating wildly about the future. It's impossible to get any deep work done. Yoga is the process of learning how to politely, but firmly say to that roommate, "Hey, I appreciate you, but I need some quiet time right now. I'm focusing on this." At first, the roommate interrupts again 2 seconds later. But with practice, they start to get the message. They learn to be quiet for longer stretches. Eventually, the entire baseline volume of your inner world begins to decrease. The silence becomes the new normal. This isn't just a feeling, it's a physical change. The connections within the default mode network actually become weaker, less sticky. At the same time, the connections between your attention control centers, primarily in the prefrontal cortex, and the rest of your brain become stronger. This is the power of neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to reorganize itself based on experience. You are literally rewiring your own brain, carving new neural pathways. Every conscious breath, every moment you choose to bring your focus back to the present, is like taking a machete to the overgrown jungle of your mind and clearing a path. The first time it's hard work. The 100th time the path is clear, wide, and easy to walk. The old, tangled paths of distraction and mind-wandering begin to fade away from disuse. You're not just trying to focus better, you are building a brain that is designed for focus. But the rewiring goes even deeper. It's not just about which networks are active, it's about the very health and growth of the brain cells themselves. Enter a remarkable protein called Brain-Derived Neurotrophic Factor, or BDNF. Scientists often refer to BDNF as miracle grow for the brain. It's a powerful substance that helps existing neurons survive, encourages the growth of new neurons and synapses, and is absolutely critical for learning, memory, and high-level cognitive function. Low levels of BDNF are linked to depression, anxiety, and a host of neurodegenerative diseases. High levels are linked to a sharp, resilient, and adaptive mind. And here's the kicker. Study after study has shown that yoga and mindful movement are potent ways to increase BDNF levels in the brain. Even a single yoga session can cause a measurable spike. A consistent practice leads to a sustained elevation of this incredible brain fertilizer. So while you're holding a warrior pose, feeling the burn in your thighs and focusing on your breath, you are simultaneously flooding your brain with the very protein it needs to build stronger connections, repair damage, and forge the new pathways of focus we just talked about. You are creating a richer, more fertile neurological environment. This explains why the benefits aren't just temporary. You don't just feel more focused for an hour after class. The increased BDNF helps to cement those neuroplastic changes, making your newfound clarity more permanent. So let's put this all together. Through the simple ancient practice of uniting breath with movement, you are accomplishing 3 incredible feats of neurological engineering. First, you are calming your entire nervous system by toning your vagus nerve, making you less reactive and more resilient to stress. Second, you are training your brain to quiet its own internal chatterbox, the default mode network, allowing you to escape the endless loop of past and future and anchor yourself in the present. And third, you are literally fertilizing your brain with BDNF, creating the raw materials needed to physically rebuild it into a more focused, efficient, and powerful organ. You are not just a passenger in your own mind, you are its architect. You're shifting the very foundation of your consciousness from a default of distraction to a new baseline of intentional, unwavering presence. But this incredible restructuring isn't just about networks and proteins. It's also about the very chemical messengers that dictate how you feel and think from moment to moment. Let's think of your brain as a complex chemical laboratory. Every thought, every feeling, Every flicker of attention is the result of a precise, delicate cocktail of neurotransmitters. When this cocktail is out of balance, too much of one thing, not enough of another, the result is mental chaos. It's the feeling of being wired but tired, anxious but unfocused, a brain buzzing with static. This is where yoga transcends simple exercise and becomes a masterclass in neurochemistry, allowing you to become the chemist in your own lab. The first and perhaps most profound chemical change yoga orchestrates involves a neurotransmitter called GABA. That's short for gamma-aminobutyric acid. If you remember nothing else, remember this. GABA is your brain's primary inhibitory neurotransmitter. It's the brake pedal. It's the off switch. It's the gentle hand that says, calm down, slow down. Everything is okay. When you have sufficient GABA levels, your neurons don't fire as erratically. The constant, frantic chatter in your mind begins to quiet down. Anxiety, which is essentially a state of neural hyperexcitability, subsides. And what happens when the background noise of anxiety is turned down? Your focus can finally come to the forefront. For years, this was a compelling theory, but in 2007, researchers at Boston University School of Medicine provided the stunning proof. They took a group of individuals and scanned their brains to measure GABA levels. Then, half the group walked on a treadmill for an hour, while the other half did a 1-hour yoga session. Afterwards, they scanned their brains again. The walking group showed no significant change in GABA, but the yoga group, they showed a staggering 27% increase in GABA levels. Let that sink in. A single hour of yoga produced a more significant neurochemical shift than many anti-anxiety medications are designed to achieve over weeks. This wasn't a small marginal effect. This was a neurochemical tidal wave. What this means is that when you are holding a pose focusing on your breath, you are not just stretching your hamstrings. You are actively instructing your brain to produce more of its own natural tranquilizer. You are flooding your system with the very molecule that silences the non-essential signals, the worried thoughts, the mental to-do lists that constantly hijack your attention. It's like equipping your prefrontal cortex with a pair of industrial-grade, noise-canceling headphones. The distractions are still technically there, but they no longer have the power to command your focus. This GABA surge is a primary reason why, after a yoga class, you feel that unique sense of calm clarity. Not a drowsy, sleepy feeling, but a state of peaceful, alert presence. Your brain's brake pedal is working perfectly, allowing you to accelerate your focus whenever you choose. But the symphony doesn't stop with GABA. Yoga also fine-tunes the chemicals that govern your mood and motivation, which are inextricably linked to your ability to concentrate. Think about it. It's nearly impossible to focus deeply on a task when you're feeling down, irritable, or unmotivated. Your emotional state creates a powerful filter through which all information must pass. Yoga helps to clean that filter, primarily by influencing serotonin and dopamine. Serotonin is often called the happiness molecule. It's a key regulator of mood, sleep, and appetite. Low levels are linked to depression and anxiety. The rhythmic, repetitive nature of a yoga flow linking breath to movement, moving through a familiar sequence of poses, is believed to stimulate the production of serotonin. It's a form of mindful movement, a moving meditation that has been shown to be as effective as traditional antidepressants for some people in boosting serotonin levels. When your serotonin levels are balanced, your overall mood lifts. You feel a sense of well-being and contentment. This emotional stability creates a solid foundation for focus. You're no longer wasting precious mental energy fighting off feelings of sadness or irritation. Your mind is a calm sea, rather than a stormy ocean, making it much easier to steer the ship of your attention. Then there's dopamine, the molecule of motivation and reward. Dopamine is what makes you want to get up and do things. It's the chemical hit you get when you achieve a goal, solve a problem, or experience pleasure. In a world of constant, instant gratification from our phones, our dopamine systems are often hijacked and dysregulated, leading to a state of perpetual craving and an inability to focus on long-term, less stimulating tasks. Yoga helps to retrain and rebalance this delicate system. Every time you hold a challenging pose for one more breath than you thought you could, every time you finally nail that arm balance you've been working on for weeks, every time you simply complete a practice you committed to, your brain releases a small, healthy pulse of dopamine. This isn't the overwhelming, addictive flood you get from a social media notification. It's a sustainable, earned reward. You are teaching your brain on a fundamental chemical level to associate effort and presence with pleasure. You are rewiring your reward circuitry to value intrinsic achievement over external validation. This process builds what psychologists call directed attention, the ability to place your focus on a goal and keep it there, fueled by a well-regulated dopamine system that rewards you for the journey, not just the destination. Finally, we must address the arch-nemesis of mental focus, the stress hormone cortisol. Imagine trying to read a book while a fire alarm is blaring in your ear. That's what chronic stress does to your brain. The constant release of cortisol, triggered by your body's fight or flight response, creates a state of hypervigilance and mental fog. It impairs function in the prefrontal cortex, your hub of executive function, and over time, it can even damage the hippocampus, the brain region critical for learning and memory. Under the influence of high cortisol, your brain isn't interested in deep focus. It's interested in survival. It's scanning for threats, not solutions. This is where the practice of yoga delivers one of its most powerful blows against distraction. The deep, diaphragmatic breathing, or pranayama, practiced in yoga is a direct hack into your autonomic nervous system. By consciously slowing down and deepening your breath, you are sending a powerful signal from your body to your brain that you are safe. You are manually activating your parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest system. This acts as a direct countercommand to the fight or flight response. It tells your adrenal glands to stop pumping out cortisol. Study after study confirms this. Regular yoga practice has been shown to significantly lower baseline cortisol levels. Practitioners have a less reactive stress response, meaning they don't just have less stress hormone floating around day to day, but when a stressful event does occur, their cortisol spike is smaller, and it returns to normal more quickly. By lowering this pervasive chemical static, yoga clears the air. It lifts the mental fog. It allows your prefrontal cortex to come back online, fully and completely. You are no longer trying to think through the noise of a blaring alarm. The alarm has been turned off. The silence that remains is the sound of pure, unadulterated focus. So what we see is a complete chemical overhaul. Yoga isn't just targeting one pathway. It's a full system upgrade. It increases the calming brake pedal of GABA. It boosts the mood-elevating and motivating duo of serotonin and dopamine. And it dramatically reduces the focus-killing stress hormone, cortisol. It's not just one thing. It's everything working in concert. You are stepping onto your mat and consciously remixing the very neurochemical cocktail that determines the quality of your mind. You are shifting your brain from a state of anxious, distracted survival to a state of calm, centered, and powerful focus. And this chemical shift, combined with the structural changes we talked about before, creates a powerful self-reinforcing loop, transforming not just how you feel for an hour after class, but who you are in every moment of your life. So how does this loop play out, not on a yoga mat, but in the chaos of your actual life? Imagine you're at work. An email lands in your inbox. It's from your boss and the tone is critical. The pre-yoga brain, the brain with an overactive amygdala and a chattering default mode network, immediately goes into threat response. The DMN starts spinning stories. I'm going to get fired. Everyone thinks I'm incompetent. I messed up that project last week. This must be about that. Your heart rate climbs. Your breathing becomes shallow. Your prefrontal cortex, the center of rational thought, is flooded with cortisol and effectively goes offline. You can't think clearly. You fire back a defensive, emotional reply that you'll regret 10 minutes later. Now, contrast that with the post-yoga brain. The same email arrives. But because you've spent hours on the mat training your interoception, you feel the first flicker of adrenaline. You notice the tightening in your chest. You feel the impulse to react. But here's the crucial difference. You don't identify with it. You have created a space between the stimulus and your response. This is the gift of a quieter default mode network and a stronger prefrontal cortex. You recognize the feeling as a physiological event, not as an absolute truth about your job security. Your practice of pranayama, of controlled breathing, kicks in almost automatically. You take one deep conscious breath. This single action sends a signal up your highly toned vagus nerve to your brainstem, telling your entire nervous system, we are safe. Stand down from high alert. The flood of cortisol is halted. Your prefrontal cortex stays online. You're able to read the email again, this time not for the perceived emotional tone, but for the actual information it contains. You see the core issue, the solvable problem, and you formulate a calm, strategic, and effective response. You haven't just avoided an office drama. You have fundamentally upgraded your operating system for dealing with reality. This isn't a superpower. This is applied neurobiology. This is the real-world ROI of your time on the mat. It's not just about becoming more focused on a spreadsheet. It's about becoming more focused on what truly matters in any given moment. It's the ability to listen, truly listen, to your partner at the end of a long day, instead of just waiting for your turn to talk while your mind rehearses your own grievances. It's having the mental clarity to see the difference between what is urgent and what is important. It's finding the quiet confidence to tackle a complex project because you've trained your mind to stay with discomfort, to breathe through a challenge, whether that challenge is holding a Warrior 2 pose for 5 more breaths or debugging 1,000 lines of code. You learn that frustration is just a sensation, that difficulty is a temporary state, and that your breath is an anchor that can hold you steady through any storm. Now, I know what many of you might be thinking because these are the barriers that stop so many people from even starting. The first one is, but I'm not flexible at all. I can't even touch my toes. Let me be unequivocally clear. Your brain does not care about your flexibility. It doesn't get an extra shot of BDNF if you can put your foot behind your head. The magic, the neurological gold, is not in the depth of the pose. It's in the quality of your attention on the pose. The mental focus comes from you paying exquisite attention to the sensation of a mild stretch in your hamstrings. It comes from noticing how your balance shifts, how your breath changes. A person struggling, shaking, and breathing consciously in a simple lunge is getting 100 times more neurological benefit than a hyperflexible person breezing through an advanced pose while thinking about their grocery list. The practice isn't about the shape your body makes. It's about the connection your mind forges with your body in that moment. The second barrier is time. I don't have an hour a day to do this. And you don't need it. Remember the principle of neuroplasticity. Neurons that fire together wire together. The key is consistency, not duration. The brain learns through repetition. 5 minutes of conscious, mindful breathing every single morning is profoundly more effective at rewiring your brain than one heroic 90-minute class you take once a month. 5 minutes. While your coffee brews. Before you check your phone. Just sitting and paying attention to the feeling of your breath entering and leaving your body. That is enough to stimulate the vagus nerve. That is enough to begin quieting the default mode network. That is enough to tell your brain, this is important. Let's build a new habit. You're not trying to become a yoga master. You're trying to become the master of your own mind, and that training happens in small, consistent deposits. And the third, and perhaps most significant barrier for many, is the idea that it's all a bit too mystical, a bit too woo-woo. But as we have explored throughout this entire journey, every single step of this process is grounded in verifiable, measurable biological fact. We're talking about the thickness of your prefrontal cortex, the volume of your hippocampus, the regulation of your amygdala. We're talking about neurotransmitters like GABA and neurotrophic factors like BDNF. This is the hard science of self-regulation. The ancient yogis may have used the language of spirit and energy, but what they discovered through thousands of years of self-experimentation was a powerful technology for interacting with the human nervous system. Today, we simply have the scientific language and the imaging tools like fMRI to describe and observe precisely why these ancient technologies work. It isn't magic, it's medicine. It's a practical, evidence-based method for upgrading your own hardware. So, what have we really been talking about this whole time? We've been talking about the single most important skill of the 21st century. The ability to control your own attention. We live in a world that is actively trying to hijack and monetize your focus. Every notification, every headline, every endlessly scrolling feed is a calculated assault on your ability to stay present and think deeply. Your attention is your most precious resource, and it's being strip-mined for profit. In this environment, reclaiming control over your focus is not a wellness trend. It is a revolutionary act. It is the ultimate form of mental sovereignty. The yoga mat, in this context, becomes a training ground. It's a dojo for your mind. Each time you bring your wandering attention back to your breath, you are doing one more rep for your prefrontal cortex. You are strengthening your ability to consciously direct your mind where you want it to go, instead of letting it be dragged around by external stimuli or internal anxieties. This is the ultimate promise of the practice. It's a journey that starts with the simple instruction to breathe, to feel, to pay attention. It leads to a cascade of changes in your brain chemistry and your brain structure. And it culminates in a life where you are no longer a passenger in your own mind, tossed about by emotions and distractions. You become the pilot. You learn to navigate your inner world with skill, with clarity, and with compassion. You don't stop having stressful thoughts or difficult emotions, but they no longer have you. So, I invite you to conduct an experiment. Forget everything you think you know about yoga. Forget the images of pretzel-like poses and serene-looking models. Just for the next 30 days, commit to 10 minutes a day. Find a quiet space, sit down, and simply pay attention to your own breath. When your mind wanders, as it will 1,000 times, just gently, without judgment, guide it back. That's it. That's the entire practice. Become the scientist of your own experience. Observe what happens. Notice the subtle shifts in how you handle stress, in how you focus at work, in how you connect with the people you love. The evidence we've discussed is compelling, but the only proof that will ever truly matter is your own. The greatest challenges of your life will be met not with more information, but with a clearer mind. The deepest connections will be forged not with more words, but with more presence. And the most profound peace you will ever find is not in some far-off destination, but it's already waiting for you, right here, right now, on the other side of your next conscious breath.